And we're live. It's Plays and Parlays, Episode 9, Week 10 of the NFL season. Joe Serralo here, joined by Jarrett Bailey. As always, we were off last week. Thank God we were off last week, Jarrett. I turned in my first 1-5 week of the season. Now, just to put that into perspective, the 3 weeks leading up to that, weeks 6, 7, and 8, I went 13-5 on my pick 6. Last week, 1-5 on my pick 6. Jarrett, you had your 1-5 week 2 weeks ago. Last week, inching back 2-4, getting back on track. Last week, the last 2 weeks have been hell for everyone. I think that's something that we can say safely. Whether it was a couple of weeks ago, the Bengals losing outright to the Jets, Tampa Bay losing outright to the Saints, or last week when you had the Cowboys losing to Denver, you had the Rams losing a shocker to the Derrick Henry-less Tennessee Titans. The last 2 weeks have been ass backwards in the NFL.
Yeah, they have. It's been weird, especially this past week. The Bills going down to Jacksonville, Minnesota playing a crazy game of Baltimore in which they blew 2 14-point leads to the Ravens. So, just a weird week. And then obviously the week before, the Jets with Mike White at the helm beating the Cincinnati Bengals. So, it's been a weird couple weeks, bad couple weeks for betting for me. For
everyone. For
everyone for the most part, unless you were, betting heavily on the Jets and Jaguars, which I'm assuming you were not. It's been a crazy few weeks, but let's try to get back on the horse and whatnot. And we were on a tear for about a 3 week span. Of course, it came down. They always do. All we can do is try to get back on the horse and, get on another heater. And that's what we're going to try to do today.
That's the name of the game. Like I said, I was 13-5, week 6, 7, 8. I'm not going to let 1-5 week slow me down. By the way, just a disclaimer on that 1-5 week. I did hit my extra point, Falcons plus 220 against the Saints. So if you're tracking me in terms of units, still in fairly good shape. But let's get into my first pick this week. I'm following suit as to what I've been doing the past 3 weeks. I'm starting with 2 college games, and the first one is Baylor plus 5.5 against Oklahoma. Look, I know Oklahoma's undefeated. They have to be the weakest looking unbeaten team in the college football landscape. You look at them against the spread, they're just 4-5, whereas Baylor is 6-3 against the number, one of the best teams in the country. And, the best team at home against the spread in college football. The Baylor Bears are 5-0 against the spread at home, while Oklahoma is 0-2 against the number on the road. And look, this is a big rebound game for the Baylor Bears. They're coming off, of course, 7-2 on the season. Their last performance, a really disappointing one. They fell at TCU, a game in which they were favored by 7. They lost 30-28. Look for Baylor this week to exploit the Oklahoma passing defense, which is the 16th worst out of 130 in the nation. Bears senior wideout Tyquan Thornton. Jarrett, I know that you're the NFL draft guy. You like looking at tape. Take a look at this senior. He was just added a week ago today to the finalist list for the Biletnikoff Award, of course, that goes to the best receiver in college football. In his last 4 contests, he's averaging 112 receiving yards and a tutty per game. Give me the Bears at home plus 5.5 to improve to 6-0 against the number at home.
Yeah, well, if he's in Mobile for the Senior Bowl, I'm sure I'll take a good look at him. But again, this is the part where I say don't know enough about the college football landscape to bet on it, so I'm just going to show off the fact that I got a new tattoo today, if I can get it past the microphone. So, there's that. So, but, Joe seems to be pretty content and pretty, good at betting on college football. So, follow that. All right. Let me get into my first pick. I'm going to take the Browns plus 1.5 at New England. The Patriots have been on somewhat of a tear of their own. They won 3 in a row. They put 54 up against the Jets. They surprised the Chargers on the road in Los Angeles. And then this past week, they keep the Panthers out of the end zone. And then have 3 interceptions against the Panthers. So defensively, they're playing really well. J.C. Jackson is having another really good year, 14 interceptions in the last season and a half. So he's playing phenomenal right now, one of the better lockdown corners in football. This just comes down to me where the Browns just are the more talented team, especially offensively. So, Nick Chubb, now he did test positive for COVID, but he is vaccinated, so still a chance that he plays Sunday against the Patriots. Even then, though, we've seen them without Nick Chubb this season, and we saw what they did with, Dearness Johnson against the Denver Broncos. So even if Nick Chubb can't go, obviously that's a blow, but we have seen Cleveland perform very well without him. So defensively, they're playing well. Myles Garrett is having a very good season. He leads the NFL in sacks. Denzel Ward had an interception return for a touchdown last week against the Bengals. This just comes down to me where Cleveland's the better team, but also maybe the team who needs this more, because you look at their schedule, they play in a division where, Cincinnati, they got to play them again to close off the year. They still play they play Baltimore twice in 3 weeks. They'll play them once, have their bye. Off their bye, they'll play the Ravens again. And then they still got to face Pittsburgh again. So that division is better than what New England has to go up against in the AFC East. Plus the Browns still play the Raiders, the Packers. So I think the Browns are the better team, but they're the team who also needs this win more to keep in contention in that AFC playoff race. So Browns plus 1.5 against the Patriots.
And by the way, just to put into perspective how tough that AFC North is, correct me if I'm wrong, aren't the Bengals, due to tiebreakers, right now in last place?
They are 5-4, and they are in last place, I do believe, yes.
So they just went from being 5-2 and having the 1 seed in the AFC in a matter of 2 weeks to being in last place in their own division. That's the AFC North for you. Look, I think Cleveland is the superior team in this matchup. I agree with the pick. Now, of course, you mentioned there is that big question mark with Nick Chubb. Even though he's vaccinated, because he tested positive, he needs 2 negative tests that are more than 24 hours apart now to play. But like you said, man, Dearness Johnson, I've got him on my fantasy team. Paid dividends in the Thursday night game against Denver a couple weeks ago, and I've got him in my flex spot this week. So we'll see what he does. Moving into my second pick. Sticking with college football here, it's the University of Kentucky. That's a big number, minus 21 at Vanderbilt. Now, how can I justify such a big number for a team that is mainly defensive-oriented, that doesn't have a whole lot of offense? Well, we've seen them just turn in their second 42-point performance of the season. They did it in a 45-42 loss to Tennessee this past week. Vanderbilt's offense is the exact opposite of that juggernaut that Tennessee possesses. If you think of the 3 or 4 maybe worst teams in college football, UConn, UMass, Temple, Vanderbilt, they all fit the mold. The Wildcats started off 6-0. They've dropped 3 straight since, and Vanderbilt is the perfect team to right the ship against. Kentucky is 6-3 against the number this year, 2-1 on the road. Vanderbilt, the opposite of that, 3-6 against the number, and at home, just 1-5 in terms of covering. What's the key for Kentucky? Not just to win this game, because a win is a given here, but to blow it open and cover. Get Chris Rodriguez the ball, their star running back, out of the backfield, and do it early. When he runs for 99-plus yards, the Wildcats are both 5-1 straight up and 5-1 against the spread. Vanderbilt's run defense, among the worst in the nation and the 3rd worst in the SEC. They allow 185 rushing yards per game. Kentucky can quite literally run away with this one early. Give me the Wildcats, minus 21.
All right, let me get into my second pick here. I'm going to take the Rams minus 4 against the 49ers. When it was announced that Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins weren't playing, that felt like a game that the 49ers should win, and that could help them maybe stay in contention in the NFC playoff race. And then Colt McCoy and James Conner go out and put on a clinic against the 49ers defense, and the Cardinals win by double digits. So the 49ers, man, they're just not a good team right now. Offensively, they can't get into any sort of rhythm. They're still in the midst of a quarterback controversy with Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance. Defensively, they aren't playing well. And the Rams are coming off a game in which they should have won and didn't play. They played their worst game of the year against the Titans. So coming off of that, going up against a division rival that's struggling, Matthew Stafford and co. are going to be playing pissed off. You can bet that Aaron Donald's going to be blitzing his butt off. Von Miller, as well as they acquired him from Denver at the deadline. So this is a Rams team that is star-studded and angry, and that is a deadly combination for a team facing them off a bad loss. So the Rams minus 4 against the 49ers in San Francisco.
Yeah, I like this game a lot. I might touch on this one in a little bit. By the way, you want to talk about Aaron Donald being angry. Did you catch that roughing the passer call that they called against him when he gave Ryan Tannehill a nice little chest tap and knocked him on his ass? I mean, that was one of the worst roughing the passer calls I've ever seen. Officiating, this season as a whole. Obviously, you were watching the Steelers game, as you are both a Steelers fan, and you cover them for multiple outlets. You were watching that game Monday night, and you saw what happened.
No one watched that game and finished it with a good taste in their mouth. That was brutal.
Yeah, I mean, that call against the Bears when the official stuck his ass out into the Bears linebacker, that was just one of the worst officiating moves, and not even calls, because it was a dirty move by the official.
Yeah.
One of the worst things I've ever seen. Moving to my third pick. Thursday Night Football. I love the Baltimore Ravens -7 in this one. Now, I've seen it move up to 7.5 today. I cashed in yesterday at -7. If it's at 7.5, I think you're still pretty safe. If not, it's a prime candidate for a game that you want to tease down to 1.5 because the Ravens should win this one by double digits. And here's why. Everyone likes to talk about the Baltimore Ravens being a one-dimensional, not just run first, but run only team. And that's simply not true. Did Lamar Jackson have a horrendous first half throwing the ball against Minnesota? He absolutely did. Did Lamar Jackson right the ship and return to his MVP, not runner, but MVP quarterback form in the second half and overtime? He absolutely did. You know what no one talks about, because the Ravens have the league's best rushing offense, is the fact that they have the league's 8th best passing offense. The Miami Dolphins, on the flip side, have the league's 3rd worst passing defense. They have the league's 3rd worst total defense. They have the league's 6th worst scoring defense. They allow 27 points per game. That's exactly what the Ravens average. It wouldn't shock me if Baltimore is able to eclipse the 30-point mark in this one for the 4th time already this season, while Miami is left somewhere in the low teens. I like the Ravens by a lot in this game.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson deserves a lot of credit for the way he's played this year. His passing is as good as it's ever been by a solid margin. And they've had 3 games in which they've trailed by double digits and won this year. They did it against Kansas City. They did it against Indianapolis. They did it this past Sunday against Minnesota. So Lamar Jackson should be right in the midst of the MVP conversation. This is his most complete year as a pro, and he's made strides in the passing game. So good for him, good for the Ravens. They should win this by a lot. 7. Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that they're on the road and it's a Thursday night game, that's why the number's so low. If it was a Sunday game, I would expect this number to be around like 9.5. So, yeah, Baltimore -7 feels good.
I will say I don't want to get too cocky because 2 weeks ago we were talking about the Bengals -9.5.
Yeah,
saying,
we were.
If this one was 16.5, I would take it.
Yeah.
And we all know what happened in that game. But I do feel pretty good about the Ravens -7. Maybe if I turn last week's 1-5 performance into a 5-1 performance this week, I'll start getting cocky again next week. But right now, I'm going to say I'm comfortable with this pick. Jarrett, what's your third selection?
I'm going to take the Broncos -2.5 against the Eagles. To me, look, Denver played a phenomenal defensive game against the Cowboys. Like, if not for 2 garbage time touchdowns, they shut them out. So defensively, they played really well. Offensively, though, I mean, their running game was going very well. Javonte Williams had a good game against Dallas. And then on the flip side, Philadelphia, to me, like, we look at Jalen Hurts' passing stats, and he doesn't throw the ball a lot, but somehow they also don't run the ball a lot. So it's just a lot of Jalen Hurts running the ball when plays break down, or even when they don't break down. You know, it seems like one read, nothing there, go for Jalen Hurts. So to me, Denver's just the more complete team. Defensively, Philadelphia's got a little bit better. I think they're better than some expected. We know how good Darius Slay is. Steven Nelson was a good acquisition as well in the offseason. But to me, Denver's better on both sides of the ball. It's at home. That's going to be a tough crowd for Philadelphia to go into and win against. So I think Denver -2.5 feels like a good line, just in case it's tied at the end. Denver wins on a field goal or something like that. So yeah, I do think that Denver wins. They should cover at home against the Eagles.
I like Denver in this one. I will say I'm staying away because something about Teddy Bridgewater as a favorite scares me a little bit. We all know he's the best quarterback as an underdog against the spread ever. As a favorite, frightens me, Dash. And, Jalen Hurts, he's not consistent, but he's explosive. And you never know which Philly team you're going to get, at least which Philly offense you're going to get. And Denver, that defense, they don't have Von Miller anymore. They were all jazzed up against Dallas to prove themselves. Are they going to come back down to earth a little bit this week? So a lot of complicated factors in this one. I agree with your pick, but I'm staying away. My fourth pick, sticking with the AFC West, it's another 2.5-point home favorite in that division. It's the LA Chargers over the Minnesota Vikings. Now, look, despite their mirrored records, the Chargers are 5-3, the Vikings are 3-5. These are 2 really evenly matched teams. Both average exactly 385 points per game on offense, tied for 9th in the NFL. But the Chargers are quietly the league's 6th best team against the spread at 5-3. Now, one reason that I love LA this week, admittedly, has to do more so with Minnesota than the Chargers themselves. It's because not only are the Vikings making a cross-country trip, but they might be doing so without their star running back, any backbone of their offense, Dalvin Cook. Now, look, there still are police reports to surface. There is still a ton of gruesome details that we have to dive into before making any assumptions or coming up with any conclusions. But the bottom line is Dalvin Cook is right now involved in, based on the pictures, a really horrifying domestic abuse situation. I'm not sure if he's going to suit up this week. Not sure what his status is going to be with Minnesota moving forward. But either way, whether he plays or not, they're evenly matched teams, and the Vikings now have a huge distraction among them. Sticking to football, the Chargers got back on track against Philly. It was a tight game, yes, but it was a good road win. And Justin Herbert, after 2 kind of off weeks for his standards, really returned to form. Austin Eckler is just your do-it-all back. By the way, finally got that signed jersey that a couple weeks ago on the show, he tweeted at me telling me I won. It's the powder blue. That's all I was asking for, so I'm a happy guy. But I think the Chargers at home are going to win this by at least a field goal. They're my 4th pick.
Friend of Laces out, Austin Eckler. What a guy. The Chargers, they were my baby of the AFC coming into the year. This game does worry me a little bit. I know the whole Dalvin Cook thing, it's horrible, and I'm not going to speculate on anything, but Minnesota is a team that they're one of those teams that can lose to anybody, but somehow they're a team that can beat anybody too. I don't know what to really make of them other than the fact that they just can't hold on in big games. So it could be another situation where they hold a big lead or just a lead in general, and the Chargers have to, win on a field goal and they win by 2 or 3. So it's iffy for me. I didn't touch it just because it's just one that's up in the air, but I do think the Chargers win. So let me get to my next pick. 4th pick for me. I'm going to take the Saints plus 2.5 at Tennessee.
Ooh.
I get that the Titans just beat the Rams, but they did it because of their defense played well. Let me just say that good for the Titans defense. Ryan Tannehill threw for 100. How many yards did he throw for? 130. So
I believe it was 190.
Oh, okay. Well, regardless, that game was very much won by their defense. If Matthew Stafford isn't falling backwards and throwing an interception directly into the lap of a Titans defender, maybe we're talking about this a little bit differently. Now, again, the Rams didn't play a good game whatsoever. Stafford was off, and the Titans defense was just playing well. I don't think that's going to be sustainable for a year where they can just rely on their defense to be this absolute unit and keep teams like the Rams at bay. Now, by no means are the Saints this explosive, powerhouse team, but they have been better offensively than I think a lot of people would have expected. Somehow Trevor Siemian's actually playing really well. Good for Trevor Siemian and the Saints offense. So I do think that the Saints will cover. Wouldn't be shocked if they won it outright. This game will come down to, whoever has the ball last should win. So I like the Saints based off their defense. Again, Tennessee's defense had a really good performance against the Rams. I like the Saints more, though. So Saints plus 2.5 at Tennessee.
I have to say before I get into my 5th pick that my last pick, the Chargers minus 2.5, I was really going back and forth debating whether to go with LA minus 2.5 or the Titans minus 2.5. Because unlike you, I actually love Tennessee in this game. I think that even though they're without Derrick Henry, I think Ryan Tannehill and their running back by committee situation can do enough to beat a New Orleans team led by Trevor Siemian. Siemian was part of that week where all the backups stepped in out of nowhere and came to life. Of course, he knocked off Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Bucks. Last week against the Falcons, what happened? The Saints were favored in that one humongously by, I believe, 6 points. They lost it at home. I think Tennessee is a way better team even without Derrick Henry. You mentioned their defense. I know that they've given up some pretty large point totals. They beat the Bills, but the Bills scored, 30, 31 points?
Yeah.
Their defense has been showing up at the right time every game. They allowed a lot of points to the Bills, but when it was crucial, they held them out of the end zone and held them to field goals, or they forced turnovers. Did the same thing against Indianapolis a couple weeks ago. I picked the Titans +1. You took Indy -1 in that one.
I did.
And they made some big plays that proved to be the difference in that game. So I think Tennessee's defense is actually a lot better than most people want to give them credit for. They're a tough, tenacious team. I like them in this one, -2.5.
All right. Well, we will find out then. We shall find out. Let me get to your next pick then.
We will. And I get no credit in terms of the show if Tennessee wins and covers. But this is going to be my first conditional pick of the year. Now, I'm not saying if Rodgers doesn't play, don't count the pick, erase it. What I'm saying in parentheses there by if Rodgers plays is that if he doesn't play, flip it to Seattle plus the 3. So here's the thing, right? Since 2019, the Green Bay Packers, after a straight-up loss, are 7-0 against the spread. They're the only team in the last 3 years to be undefeated against the spread following a straight-up loss. Now, since 2009, much larger sample size. 2009 was Aaron Rodgers' second year as a starter. He went 6-10 in 08. Second year, 09, started to have some success. Since then, after a straight-up loss, they had covered 63% of the time. Talk about a model of consistency. That's the third best mark in football over the past 12 years. Taking out after a loss, what they do? Well, just looking at the fact that they're the home team in this one, they are 3-0 against the spread at Lambeau Field this year. Only team in football that's undefeated against the spread at home. They are also the best team in football against the spread this season. They're 8-1. Dallas was 7-0, fell to 7-1 last week, so Green Bay has a half-game edge on them against the spread. Don't forget last week, even though they lost, they ended up covering. They were +7, lost 13-7 to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. What does that tell you? It tells you Green Bay's defense is taking a step in the right direction because they had nothing going for them last week. Jordan Love was flatter than one of your tires right now, Jarrett. I mean, he was absolutely awful. Sorry, I know that flat tire's bugging you. Had to include that in there. And the last thing I want to point out is that even though Russell Wilson is playing, he's coming off an injury, and additionally, the Seattle Seahawks, since 2012, that's the Russell Wilson era, following a regular season bye, are just 4-5 against the spread. Most teams are great against the spread following a bye week. The Seahawks, actually a little less than mediocre. So all signs, if Aaron Rodgers plays, point to Green Bay, -3 being a steal. If he doesn't play, hammer Seattle, even if they become a favorite. If this moves to a pick'em, or if it's Seahawks -1, -2, if it's Russ Wilson versus Jordan Love, the answer is Russ Wilson. If it's Wilson versus Rodgers and Lambeau, the answer is Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, if Aaron Rodgers plays, this should be a Green Bay win, especially just because even though Russell Wilson's coming back, he hasn't played in a month, fingers a little bit banged up. I still like Green Bay. And that now, again, if Jordan Love plays, Jordan Love was kind of thrown to the wolves in a hostile environment with a defense that sent the house at him. I get it. But still, Russell Wilson over Jordan Love that's the right pick. So let me get to my next pick. I'm going to take Atlanta +9 at Dallas. I think Dallas wins this game, but Atlanta has the offensive talent to keep it close. Like as good as, Dallas has shown to be on defense this year, they do have moments where they get beat. And I think Atlanta can do that. Cordero Patterson somehow has become their best offensive weapon. Kyle Pitts has played well. Now we know that Calvin Ridley won't be there, which is, a shot to them, but they've had other guys step up. So, I do like Atlanta's offense. I think they're playing well enough to get the job done, to keep it close. By no means do I think they're going to win this game, but I do think that they'll keep it, within double digits to keep it at least interesting. So Atlanta +9 against the Cowboys.
I actually love that pick. Now let's get into my sixth pick. We are entering lock of the week territory here. Death, taxes, and the LA Rams covering after a loss, Jarrett. In the Sean McVay era, since 2017, the Rams are the third best team in the league covering after a loss. They are 14-7 against the spread following a loss, and that's why this is my lock of the week. Look, when the Rams lost to Arizona a month ago, I took them week on Thursday as my lock of the week because in the McVay era, they were at the time 13-7 against the spread following a loss. They proved me right that week, so I'm going to ride them again this week at San Fran. The San Francisco 49ers are just 2-6 against the spread on the season, absolutely abysmal, and they are yet to win or even cover at home. They're 0-4 at home straight up, 0-4 at home against the spread. Look, I think the Rams are pissed after some careless turnovers last week, after their failure to finish drives last week, and after some piss-poor officiating last week. So I see them holding nothing back at Levi's Stadium on Monday night. Hammer the Rams -4 in this one.
Yeah, no, I mean, I touched on it earlier. Completely agree. Rams -4. Let me get into my last pick. You know, it's a hell with it. I'm taking the Jets plus 13 against the Bills.
Ooh, okay.
Look, Buffalo, for some reason, Vegas keeps giving Buffalo ginormous spreads to cover, even when they have piss poor efforts like we just saw against Jacksonville. I think they were 14.5-point favorites against the Jaguars.
Yeah.
They did cover a big spread earlier this year against the Texans. I think they were like 17.5-point favorites, and they shut them out. So,
Yep.
But Buffalo, like, it's clear that something's wrong offensively. Like, Josh Allen doesn't look right. They can't get the ball to Stephon Diggs enough. Defensively, they're playing fine. Like, they're not doing anything wrong on that end of the ball the last few games, but offensively, they need to figure something out. Mike White's playing for the Jets. He's looked good. It's weird to think, a guy who had 0 career starts coming in this year, he played really well against the Bengals, was playing well against the Colts before he got hurt. I'll take the Jets plus 13 against Buffalo. The Bills should still win. But, yeah, the Jets are playing like they can cover a 14-point spread. They did it against Indianapolis. They were down by a good margin against the Colts, especially at halftime, but put together a few drives to make that game a one-score game at the end. So, yeah, I'll take the Jets plus 13 against Buffalo. Like I said, the Bills should still win, but the Jets are playing like a team that can cover.
2 weeks ago, I would have said you're crazy, but since then, the Jets have beaten the Bengals outright. The Bills have lost to the Jags outright. Jarrett, I don't blame you for this pick at all. There is something wrong with Buffalo. I don't know if it's Josh Allen. I don't know if it's the offensive line. I don't know if it's both. Maybe it's the fact that they don't have a run game and their offense has become too one-dimensional and too predictable, and defenses are rushing them a lot more ferociously. A lot of factors there, but something's wrong with Buffalo on offense. Defense is still the best in the league statistically, but don't blame you for this pick at all. I actually kind of agree with you. I could see this being a 7 to 10 point win for Buffalo, which would be a Jets cover. So my extra point, you actually just hit on this game. It's the Atlanta Falcons plus 330 over the Dallas Cowboys in Jerry's World. Look, I should be reasonable here, and I should be practical here, dealing with a moneyline underdog. I should have taken the Raiders plus 120 on Sunday Night Football. They seem like the best bet out of all the underdogs to win this week. But I'm not too much of a reasonable person. So instead, I'm going to go big, because no risk it, no biscuit. And I'm going to take the Atlanta Falcons plus 330 in this one. Now, why would I be so bold with a team as inconsistent as the Atlanta Falcons have been ever since they've blown that 28-3 Super Bowl lead my freshman year of college? Well, not only is Atlanta 3-1 against the spread on the road this year, they are 3-1 straight up on the road this year. And you pair that with the emergence of Kyle Pitts, who started out of the gate really slowly, but since then has grown into a legitimate threat, one of the most dominant tight ends in football the last 4 or 5 weeks so far this year. Pair that with Cordero Patterson, like you mentioned, doing it all, running, receiving, returning like he's 23 again. And then the probably most unspoken about member of the Atlanta Falcons, A.J. Terrell, the cornerback, second-year kid out of Clemson, who is statistically, Jarrett, the best cornerback in football this season. Hasn't allowed more than 31 yards to an opposing receiver when he's been targeted this year. He's been lights out, shut down cornerback. I mean, we all know Dallas. Of course, they have Zeke in the backfield, but Dallas is a passing offense, right? They've got Amari Cooper. They've got CeeDee Lamb. You have A.J. Terrell. Take one of them out of the game, preferably CeeDee Lamb, as he's more of a big play guy at this point in time. And all of a sudden, the Falcons might just have enough on each side of the ball to pull this one out. So I'm going with them plus 330 in Jerry's World.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that they're going to win outright. I do think they'll keep it close, but it wouldn't necessarily surprise me if they did either. So let me get to mine. I touched on this one earlier as well. I'm going to take the Browns over the Patriots. They started off the week as 2.5 point underdogs. I think the line's going to 1.5 now. The Browns, I touched on it earlier. They're the better team. They need it more. I'll take the Browns over the Patriots as my extra point. Let's get into our teasers now. Joe, you can touch on your teaser first. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I've got a 4-team teaser plus 300. It's what I come at you with every week. 2 college games, neither of which I played straight. And then 2 NFL games. I think the NFL games are pretty predictable. If I love the Ravens -7, I adore them -1. Tampa Bay Bucks, I like them -9.5 against Washington, especially coming off a bye. Not confident enough to pull the trigger there. -3.5, even though normally I would say, why would you tease it down to 3.5? What if it's a field goal game? This should be at least a 6 or 7 point win for Tampa. So I'm making those my 2 NFL games. On the college side, Notre Dame playing the University of Virginia. Now, I know the Cavaliers have a surprising, explosive offense, but Notre Dame's a 5.5-point favorite, so I'm teasing them down to plus a half a point. There are no ties in college, so essentially it's a pick 'em. Notre Dame's a top 10 team. They're more complete on both sides of the ball, so I don't see Virginia really winning a 58-55 shootout like we saw between Wake Forest and North Carolina in that ACC last week. Final game here, Georgia minus 14. They're favored by 20 over Tennessee. We all know Tennessee has an explosive offense. We've seen shootouts with Ole Miss. We've seen shootouts like last week when they beat Kentucky 45-42. Georgia has far and away the best defense in the country. Georgia's going to have probably at least 7 or 8 guys from this defense end up going pro. And I mean end up going like top 2 to 3 rounds in the NFL draft by going pro. They haven't allowed more than 13 points to an opponent all year. I don't think winning this one by 14 is asking for a whole lot from Kirby Smart's Georgia Bulldogs. So that's my teaser, plus 300. Take it to the bank.
All right, let me get into my teaser now. 5-team teaser for me. I'm going to take the Colts minus 4.5 against the Jaguars. Cleveland plus 7.5. I mean, I liked him plus 1.5. So just to give me that a little extra luxury. Dallas minus 3. Now, this is where it gets interesting because I did pick Atlanta to cover the original spread. So I need Dallas to win by between like 4 and 8. That would be just quick. And then I'll take the Cardinals minus 4.5. They should cover 10.5 against Carolina, but I do love Carolina's defense. PJ Walker starting for the Panthers. So we'll find out how that's going to play out. Then just for an extra little fun, I put the Rams plus 2 in there because I wanted better odds. So this one, I believe, came in at plus 333 in a 5-team teaser.
Yeah, it looks pretty good to me. You know, Dallas, that's a reasonable pick. Of course, I said Atlanta was going to win money line, so it's a pick I'm forced to root against. But I think that's a really reasonable tease. 9 is a big number. 3 should be doable when you're dealing with a team of the Cowboys' caliber. I like all the others, Jarrett.
There we go. All right. Parlay time for both of us. Joe, kick us off.
It is parlay time. Now, the last episode we did 2 weeks ago, we went with outlandish parlays. Mine was like plus 1,400. Yours was plus 4,200.
It was absurd.
Yeah, 5 teams, and you went 1 and 4. So on my plus 1,300, I think I went 2 and 3. I'm going to take it back and tone it down a notch. I'm going to go 4 teams, money line, plus 345 odds. Good enough odds. So I'm going to take Notre Dame. I teased them down to a pick 'em. So going with the money line here was a no-brainer to me. I don't think Virginia beats the Fighting Irish. I'm going to go with Baltimore. I've already got them minus 7 and minus 1 respectively. So I think money line's a safe bet. Going to go with Green Bay. And again, this is dependent. I'm only including Green Bay if Aaron Rodgers plays, because I've already said if he doesn't play, that I would bet on Seattle. So going Green Bay, of course, if Rodgers plays. And then the Rams, I got them minus 4. I think they're going to win by double digits. San Fran has nothing. The Rams have a ton. I know they faltered. They slipped up on Sunday night. They get Von Miller in this one. Stafford's going to be pissed. He's going to be playing edgy. I just think that the Rams are a lock. That's why it's my lock of the week, Monday night.
Yeah, no, I love that. That is one that I would take to the bank as well. So let me get into mine now. So we're going to start off. I did tone it down a little bit, still plus 1160.
Okay.
I'll take Indianapolis minus 3.5 at the alternate spread. You know, I love my alt spreads whenever, you know, they're anytime something's like, you know, plus or minus 10.5, I always try to go with an alt spread. I don't want to just do money line and just, you know, I'll buy some points. Cleveland money line, that's where, you know, the odds get up a little bit just because the Browns are underdogs in this game. Dallas minus 3.5. Again, I think that they can cover that. I'm not going to go minus 9 all the way, but money line wasn't the best odds. Buffalo minus 3.5. Same story with Dallas. Like Buffalo should win this game. I'm not trusting them to cover 2 touchdowns. And then the Saints plus 3 against the Titans. Already touched on that for the most part. I just think that New Orleans, I like their defense more. And then the Rams money line against the 49ers. So all in all, plus 1160 in my parlay.
So 2 things scare me here. First off, I mean, you know, we can debate this game until we're blue in the face. You like the Saints. I just like the Titans. So that, of course, scares me. Sure. The other thing, and it's not a specific team. It's the fact it's not even Cleveland being a money line underdog because, you know, I think Cleveland's better, especially if Chubb plays. To me, those odds are going to change drastically. It's the fact that you have 3 alternate spreads at minus
3.5. I knew you were going to comment on this.
And one of them is bound to be a field goal game.
And I'm going to cry a lot.
This is a parlay that you're destined to go 5-1, and that one loss is by a half point. It's just, It just seems like that's destined to happen. Probably Dallas. Atlanta has lost so many games on a game-winning field goal in the past few years.
Yeah.
So I could see Dallas winning that one by kicking the ball in as time expires. But yeah, it just seems like it's destined to happen.
Knowing my luck, it might.
Now, Jarrett, before we get into my survivor pick, and I'll explain why it's my survivor pick, not our survivor picks, we do have a winner tonight. A third quarter winner. We've got some action. Went the over 50 on Toledo and Bowling Green. Going into the fourth quarter, Toledo's up 42-10. So we have a weeknight action over. I mean, these things are just free money. You take the over on a Tuesday or Wednesday night MAC football game. And in the fourth quarter, I'm cruising. 42-10. Over already hit. So the reason we're going to get into my survivor pick to close the show is because for the second time this year, Jarrett lost his survivor. I'm just adding insult to injury. First the flat tire, now this shit. Opening week, he had Green Bay as his survivor pick against the Saints. Gave him a mulligan, gave him a breakfast ball, equated it to a shitty first drive on the first hole on a round of golf. He was doing great, and then 2 weeks ago took the Bengals against the Jets. I don't blame him. It's a pick I would have made if I didn't already use Cincinnati against Jacksonville, and that was a sweat out. Yeah. So Jarrett's eliminated. I'm still riding with my survivors. Jarrett, you want to pull mine up?
I gotcha.
It is the Colts against the Jacksonville Jaguars. What are the odds that Urban Meyer's Jaguars pull off 2 double-digit money line upsets in consecutive weeks?
Oh, if he does that, he's back next year. That's what the Jacksonville Jaguar faithful might not want.
Him and all his 30-year-old blondes. I mean, 14.5-point dogs against Buffalo. They win outright. By the way, I don't know if you noticed, because Buffalo was the road team, their score showed first. So instead of it saying 9-6, it said
6-9.
9.
Nice.
They're 10.5-point dogs this week. I don't see a consecutive humongous money line win coming here for the Jaguars. I mean, imagine the amount of money you can make on them if they were to win this one outright. If you just bet them 2 weeks in a row money line, holy crap, you're rolling. I don't see it happening. So I'm going with the Colts. I don't see too many opportunities throughout the year to use Indianapolis in a survivor. So it was pretty much either them or Buffalo this week. I'm going to ride with the Colts. You know, last week I took the Chargers, and that was a sweat out. We could have both been eliminated in the past 2 weeks. But the teams that I was comparing to the Chargers, I was looking at Dallas against Denver as a team I was heavily thinking about taking. And I'm happy I went with the Chargers at the end of the day. So this week I'm going to go with the Colts, still keeping the Green Bay Packers in my holster, still keeping the Tampa Bay Bucks, the Buffalo Bills. So, you know, if I can get to week 15 or week 16 and have Buffalo, Tampa, and Green Bay in my arsenal, I'll be sitting pretty. But this week it's the Colts.
There you go. You know, I'm a big Colts guy, so it's a pick that I like. So, yeah, that wraps up this edition of Plays and Parlays. Joey, where can they find you on the socials?
Catch me on Instagram at Joe Serralo, at TikTok at Joe_Serralo. I do usually put my lock of the week on TikTok. And then, of course, at Twitter at the Joe Serralo. And, yeah, my last tweet kind of blew up. So check that out.
There you go. All right. Follow me on Twitter at JBaileyNFL. Multiple pieces a week for Fansided, Pittsburgh Sports Now. Pro wrestling now, apparently. Just did a show with my buddy Jeremy Lambert and SP3 on Fightful Wrestling. That was a lot of fun. So go check that out. It's on YouTube. The Distractions YouTube page for Fightful. So go watch that if you're a wrestling fan. Aside from that, we will be back here next week for previewing week 11 as November keeps rolling on. And yeah, we're almost at Thanksgiving. 2 weeks. 2 weeks of Thanksgiving, everybody. My goodness. Season's going by quick. So as always, appreciate you all watching. You can check this out as a podcast if you're not watching it live. So we will see you next week. Plays and Parlays.